Hello and welcome. You're watching QTV and you are watching The Week in Review. I'm Ade Darami, and across the table from me I have Fred and colleague Mamadou Mbodj. Mr. Mbodj, welcome to the program.
Yes, I'm glad to be here.
And just to confuse regular watchers, we've swapped places this time, but still the same format. And anybody joining for the first time, simple format really, 10 stories from the week just gone by and that we think are interesting and we hope you'll find interesting too. And we go through them in some details. Some stories require a lot more of our attention than others. So if you think, my word, they're spending a long time on this story, chill. It's meant to be like that, okay? So what's on the menu? So President Barrow this week has inaugurated the country's first food and medicines and drug testing laboratory, and we were there, and we'll delve into that one. He's been very busy, the president. He also took time to address recent power outages that have affected mainly the Greater Banjul area, and also the Gambia Tourism Board. They went on a kind of mini inspection of what they call the TDA, the Tourism Development Area, and they were horrified at some of the stuff they saw, and you'll probably be horrified too. And I said the president had been busy. There was also an internet outage which affected everyone except those who subscribed to QCell. And so the president went and inspected the ACE cable to find out what was happening, and we'll get that story as well. Also, we're going through a time when increasing oil prices. So guess what? The Gambia has just signed a landmark offshore oil exploration deal. But don't get too excited. These things can take a while. Also, the case of Ousseynou Bojang, the man accused of shooting to death 2 PIU officers and wounding another. He was tried and he was acquitted, and the state said they would appeal, and they've made good that threat. They've appealed that judgment. Also, next door in Senegal, ex-president Abdoulaye Wade has turned 100. He turned 100 on the 29th of May, and the state of Senegal has been holding lots and lots of celebrations in his honor. Also, something that's very close to my heart and that of Mr. Mbodj, reading and books. The Q Group Foundation has donated a set of books to 4 lower basic schools. And when we get into the story, you'll realize why that's significant. Also, Presidents Macron and Kagame, a very, very significant and somber event that took place in Paris this week. A memorial to the Rwanda genocide was unveiled in Paris. And also, finally, African teams. As you watch this program, they'll be 5 days away from the World Cup. And we looked at some of them and the friendly matches they had been playing in preparation for the World Cup. So these are the stories, all of them. So let's get things off and running, shall we? Well, the first one is the first one I did mention, which is that His Excellency the President has inaugurated the country's first food and drugs testing laboratory. Here's some of what went down.
For many Gambians, especially the families of victims, the memory of the acute kidney injury AKI crisis in 2022 that claimed the lives of more than 70 children from imported poisonous Indian cough syrup medicine remains a painful reminder of the devastating consequences of unsafe medicines. Today, as President Barrow inaugurated the country's first National Food and Drug Quality Control Laboratory at Bursibi Turntable, the facility is designed to conduct scientific testing and quality assurance of food, medicines, and other regulated products entering the Gambia market. The state-of-the-art facility will detect substandard and counterfeit products, ensuring that consumers have access to safe and effective food and medicines. It will also reduce reliance on foreign laboratories for testing services.
Countries that want to maintain a healthy population must ensure that their nationals eat the right mix of food and take safe and effective medications. Going by such standards, this lab facility is sufficiently furnished with modern equipment to detect harmful elements and bacteria in foodstuff.
At a time when regulatory alignment and food safety are becoming more important across the region, this lab stands as a strategic national asset. As we celebrate this inauguration, we must also look ahead. Buildings and equipment alone do not guarantee success. The true value of this lab will be measured by the quality of its operations, the competence of its workforce, the integrity of its systems, the sustainability of its financing, and the consistency in which it delivers reliable results.
As we heard there, buildings alone will not do it, Mr. Mboj. Something you and I are always banging on about. You go sort of build the prettiest building, but it's the people who run it that matter, and the equipment that's there to help run it. But we finally got there. At least it's a start.
Absolutely. We used to say a school is not a building.
Indeed.
way back.
Quite.
Yes, Ade, finally a kind of national reference center, isn't it?
Indeed.
To test and certify the safety,
Yeah.
quality, efficacy of medicines, food products, and cosmetics.
Exactly.
We interviewed,
we
interviewed Gando
Baldo.
the comms officer, I think, of Ministry of Health. So absolutely, this is it. And just as our reporter said there, when it works as it should, then what do we have? Autonomy in many ways.
Well,
then you stop sending samples to foreign laboratories with the cost, one, and the delay.
Well, that's right.
That's it.
Right.
And something else with this, there's a shield, critical shield against substandard, contaminated, or expired consumer imports.
Yes, quite, well, this is it. And you know, you and I know that one of the things that I've always kind of railed against is that, and I have to say this in all honesty, that since I've come to the Gambia, I've seen instances where people have kind of bribed to get something through that should not come through. And they don't care of the fact that this might be something that's harmful to people. And they've managed to get an official who's on the inside who will take. And this really is something that, yes, the building is fine, the equipment is fine, but as well as trained people, we need honest people there. Because if they find a product that is substandard, they need to say, I don't care how many millions you spent importing this into the country, it cannot be sold here, it cannot be dispensed here. In the case of medicines, AKI, of course, the most high profile, not needless to say, when more than 70 children died. But other things, and of course, I'm glad you mentioned cosmetics as well. Yeah,
That's it. So now the second bit, just as the gentleman said, the physical infrastructure is really step one.
Yeah, quite.
So sometimes you may have to go 6 or 7 steps before you get the outcomes that you want.
Sure.
So that is absolutely a problem.
Sure.
How? Because the system being so venal.
Well, this, quite. So the system is venal, and this is new to us.
This is new.
Us doing it ourselves, taking that autonomy that, as you describe it, when previously you and I have been here, we've said, oh, what's happened? Oh, they've sent it to Ghana, they've sent it to Senegal, to Nigeria, to South Africa, to Turkey in one instance, for testing. It has to be done here. It will be done here. So, of course, we need the experts and we need honest people. We really must emphasize that point.
That's it. So the operational capacity and accountability systems in place, that's it. And the expertise.
Yeah, right.
When we talked about the expertise with the comms officer, he said, yes, when you take FSQA, because these are really mainly the two main agencies that will be responsible for this. FSQA, the Food Safety and Quality Authority, and the MCA, the Medicines Control Agency. So he said, with the FSQA, they've got their scientists to do stuff like that. Sure. With the MCA, they've got their scientists as well. They're doing stuff like that. Of course, they need to train more because when you look at the volume, especially the informal market, that's where we sell, most of our food really, and traditional mixtures.
Yeah, sure.
How would that come in?
Yeah.
So the scale of the work. Then you worry about the expertise they have and the operational capacity.
Sure.
That's what one worries about.
It's a good reason to be worried, but let's also be hopeful. Thank you for that, Mr. Mboj. Story number 2. I said the president has been busy this week. Well, people have been complaining about lots and lots of things. And if you live in the Greater Banjul area, one of the things you've been complaining about, needless to say, has been the really, really poor electricity supply. It has been dreadful. There's no way to say it other than that. And so His Excellency was stopped, he was asked, and here's some of what he had to say.
Electricity, we are very concerned. We are concerned because electricity we consider as national security for us. That's why we are doing everything possible to restore stable electricity in this country. For 2 years, we are having stable electricity in this country. But because it was stable, it's good news, no noise. But for 2 weeks, there is a lot of noise going on. But these are technical issues. Technical issues are beyond our control. But we are working 24/7 with our partners, because we are partnering with Guinea, we are partnering with Senegal. Let me tell you something very interesting. You know, people think we are just taking power from Senegal. Senegal is also taking power from us. Do you know that? Yes, it's vice versa. They're also taking power from us. There are areas that are taken from Gambia. So we swap at the end of the month.
We swap at the end of the month. I'm sure people will be surprised to know that, Mr. Ambush, but also he said these are technical issues that we cannot, cannot control. We have no option over. But then somebody might ask the question, why is that? I mean, electricity is not something new. It's something that's been around for a long time. And if it's a technical issue, what is the technical issue? And why is it that we've not been able to solve it?
You see, this is it. When you talk about the regional supply chain, yes, yeah. we will see what's going on. Yeah. But that only reveals that we rely so much, as it were, on external sources.
Yeah, quite.
You see, but here the point is the backup.
Yeah.
What was the backup machinery?
Yeah,
Can you imagine suddenly this sort of heavy machinery, the parts, suddenly they all break down at once?
No, yeah.
How many backup generators do we have?
We get fed up talking about a lack of maintenance culture in this country, and this is the kind of brought it home to roost big time because, you know, the number of weeks or days that people have been suffering and the extent of it, you know, it's businesses, it's individuals. We've had colleagues, I know this is anecdotal, they've come to the office and said, you know, I've had to leave my fridge completely open, having thrown away everything perishable that was in there because, you know, I'm just not getting. I mean, one colleague said he'd gone 4 days without electricity, and that was why. And then he found out that whilst he was at work, they had like 2 hours of electricity, but of course that wasn't good enough. So of course all these items were spoiled and they had to throw them away.
The routine maintenance sort of causing an emergency. But again, I heard somebody, they call it a glitch.
Yeah.
Is this a glitch? Go and ask people who've lost so much food because there was no electricity, refrigeration. Think of the businesses. Have they calculated that shit? Yeah, the economic cost.
Yeah, quite.
This is not a glitch.
No, quite.
So you just cannot use such sort of trivial in many ways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You cannot do that, really. Accept the seriousness of it.
Sure.
And yes, for 2 years, relatively okay, but we've also had periods where things were bad.
Indeed.
So nothing has changed
much. It's not been
much.
constantly good in those 2 years.
That's it. So here we have it. Just before this breakdown, I call it Black Tobaski this year. That's what we had. Yeah. We had sustained periods without cuts. But it seems, why this sudden collapse?
That's it. And
so something was exposed there, wasn't it? Right. Was it structural? We're talking about it all the time. Yeah. The systemic weaknesses, suddenly they reveal themselves. Yes, that's really what the issue is. It was spectacular. Yeah, they should be gradual, I thought. But okay, and suddenly, bam, gone.
Yeah, from you know, sort of from grass to grace, as it were, you know, or the reverse, you know, as you said, for a while it had been relatively stable, let's say, but then all of a sudden, when it did go bad, it went bad very, very suddenly, and it impacted. And I'm glad you mentioned the Tobaski one, because we heard from tailors who said, I couldn't even do half the business that I would have expected to do. This is my livelihood. That's a high kind of volume time of the year for me. We had really, really good business. And yet, of course, because I had no electricity, I couldn't do that amount of business that I was looking forward to doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So some people are saying that the president, rather, or the government, they really prioritize high-profile distribution expansion projects, as it were, over generation. With this, you know what I mean? Yeah. So what are we going to do? Now we're experiencing it. We have to move on. Yeah. They said on the 15th, by June. Yeah. What data are they relying on to give us that prediction? Sure. We do not know. So what do we do next? As it were, how do we rectify what's going on? Because we've even heard, the people are talking, this thing is important for NAWEC to come out and say something, that generators, backup generators, were disassembled, as it were, and sold off, the parts sold off.
Right.
There are people saying all sorts of things, but there's a lot of explanation to be done, not to come and call it a glitch.
No,
people are suffering so much at home, that is so unfair, and we shouldn't downplay it. 2 years, fine, suddenly 2 weeks and everybody's angry. Well, yes, because of the consequences.
Quite.
It doesn't lessen the consequences that we feel.
Exactly.
So that's a bit slightly thoughtless, one feels. You really cannot say that. Acknowledge the pain and say, but you will surmount this, just as we've done in the past. It's nothing new. We've had this sort of thing in the past.
Let's hope it will soon be in the past for good. Thank you, Mr. Mboj. That takes us to story number 3. The Gambia Tourism Board, GT Board as everybody likes to call them, they went around and the tourism development area, and they invited the media along. They said because there have been certain things that they were concerned about, things that have been brought to their attention, and they wanted the media to see and then relay these to the public. And some of what they saw, if I had hair, it would make my hair curl even more than it has. Here's some of what we saw and some of what we heard.
One of the most concerning discoveries was a structure operating as a bar, restaurant, and a lounge despite being near a sewage disposal site. Ida Jengjai is the Director General of the Gambia Tourism Board.
And GT Board issued a notice of closure. They refused. And by that effect, they decided to take us to court, because we have seen that it's not healthy and it's not conducive for visitors to come and visit. And besides, it's illegal, because they never sought any permission from the Gambia Tourism Board. GT Board was here on 3 different occasions to advise as to what to do. And at one occasion, they were so violent to the extent that they wanted to attack one of the staff members, which is not right.
The board also observed something which is a common sight across much of the Gambia, namely the continued presence of construction materials on pedestrian walkways, this time in parts of Bakau and Fajara, obstructing public access and spoiling the appearance of the tourism corridor. The inspection further uncovered poor waste management practices behind several hotels, including areas around the back gates of hotels in Bijilo Tourism Zone. Officials observed piles of garbage, foul odor, and cut trees branches discarded in open spaces behind some properties, creating an eyesore and making them environmental and public health hazards.
A confession here, Mr. Mboj. I had wanted to ask my reporter, but I didn't, whether the National Environment Agency had gone along with them on this trip, because yes, they took the media, because some of what we saw are obviously environmental matters, not just tourism related matters. So it was the GT Board that led this, but to my embarrassment, I tried to look through the footage, the extra footage that wasn't used in, but I couldn't see whether, and I certainly didn't hear any NEA people come and speak. But nonetheless, GT Board have taken the initiative because, of course, it's in the TDA, Tourism Development Area, and that's why it's of concern to them. But some of the things like impromptu restaurant next, or not next to, but close to a sewage plant, that's takes some doing. And of course, they've said, we tried to, and instead of complying, they took us to court.
Absolutely. There was an order issued, and then they refused, and now they're going to court. So, which got me thinking, really, what are the powers of GT Board? That's it's its role merely advisory, or it's got enforcement powers?
You wonder.
One wonders about stuff like that. And then, whose responsibility is it to make sure that these people behave? As it were, we have regulation around GT Board, or the area, the TDA. We have regulation and stuff like that. Whose responsibility is it to make sure that people conform? So there, by showing that, we're just telling the world that whatever we have in place is not working.
Yeah,
this was a confession of systems not working. That is why it is the way it is.
Well, this is it. And just the fact that people feel that they can ignore the system because they've seen other people do so and possibly get away with it. I mean, one of the structures we saw there, I had to ask my colleague who went, Jacqueline, I said, you know, can you show me the full footage? Because this person has built a structure right on the edge of what is essentially a beach. And it doesn't even look sound. Like when it would, if they allowed it to be fully finished, it probably topple over in a couple of years just because of how precariously perched it is. And I'm thinking that's probably somebody wasting their money. And yet they probably tell you somebody from physical planning gave them, you know, whatever, so that they could go ahead with it. But as you rightly say, we have the rules, they're being ignored, but who enforces and why did it have to get to that stage before they came and, you know, did this kind of photo op?
But this is the key, though. When I do not do what I'm supposed to do, and then I come back crying over the consequences. That's essentially how I see these things. So what you get is like appealing to people's morality. That is not public policy. So public policy has to work. Right. Whatever people can get away with, they will do it.
They will do.
You see, it's pointless appealing to that sort of sentiment. It's not going anywhere. Let us have proper public policy and enforce the policies. It's just as simple as that. This was just a confession of failure.
Yeah, quite. So, you know, I did say to Jacqueline that we really must follow up on this to see what happens in those particular cases because they've been highlighted and we need to know whether anything's going to be done about it and by whom.
That's it. I understand that there's a lot of poor waste management behind hotels.
Quite.
They've got lots of money. Would you find them? Would there be consequences? Stuff like that. These are some of the structures. These are some of the things that make people sort of think twice.
Yeah, quite.
Really. Yeah. But when there's impunity, see this culture of impunity, you see it all over the place.
Well, this is it because
how do you break it? How do you
exactly, because we've got, you know, when this, again, when they came back, I said, you know, we've known instances where shops that were selling substandard goods were shut down for a while. I said, did you get the sense that GT Board had the power to shut down either hotels, restaurants who were engaged in these? But that never came through. So I don't know, maybe people didn't ask the question, but that's what needed to happen, surely.
And when you follow through, what happens afterwards?
Yeah, quite.
You know what I mean? So sometimes you see what appears to be sort of selective, uneven enforcement.
Yeah.
They'll just identify a few, maybe easy targets, and just enforce and come back and say, you see, we're enforcing.
We're doing stuff.
But again, you don't have that critical mass to make a difference. So, I don't know, it's just the way we do things here. We do little, but we want so much praise for it.
Yeah, quite. And but this is quite serious. Thank you for that, Mr. Borg. Story number 4. I did say top of the program that the president has been busy. There was a brief for some, but prolonged for others, shutdown of internet on all the GSM operators apart from QCell. And of course, we know how reliant we are on the internet for so many things. And this partial shutdown was enough to actually get the president interested enough to go and have a look to see exactly what went down. Have a look, have a listen.
While several operators experienced difficulties, QCell remained operational, ensuring that thousands of customers maintain access to critical digital services. Lamin Jabi, Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, explained that technical equipment failures at the station led to the disruption, affecting multiple service providers and exposing vulnerabilities within the communications network. He said the president's visit reflected the strategic importance the government attaches to the communications infrastructure, and that the president has given a directive for uninterrupted power supply to the station.
Today we are the only independent telecommunication company where our products and services doesn't depend on any other company. And we have redundancies we have created in our network to make sure that when one area goes down, the other area is up. So that is what has happened yesterday, and we are proud to say that, you know, we were up and running, and we hope that we will not have these scenarios in the country. QCell is ready to help other service providers also to have the same level of service level. We are Gambians and we want to work with everybody to make sure that the telecommunication market is stable, reliable, and accessible to all Gambians living here.
According to Chairman Jah, QCell has built multiple layers of backup into its network, allowing services to continue even when one connection path is affected.
Well, the fact that government liberalized the fiber cable deployment, the backbone deployment, and fiber to home, fiber to office, it was not liberalized. I want to be clear here. It was not liberalized only for QCell. It was a sector liberalization. Today, I am happy to say that the whole country, we have a backbone crisscrossing the entire country. If it did not happen, the whole country would have been down yesterday. But because of the liberalization and the fact that Q Group or QCell invested, close to $20 million on the project, the past 1 year shows that, we are ready for the future. We want the Gambians to, enjoy internet and to do their work without any problem.
Really, people watching this will say, yeah, but you guys are QTV, you would say that. Well, this has happened. We didn't invent it. And it is what we've been talking about in the other context of the electricity. What is your backup? What is your plan B? And if you don't have a plan B, what happened with the internet is what can happen, Mr. Mboj. And that's why, we find ourselves, where we were with this internet one. And people really did suffer for quite a while.
Now, take note.
Yeah, well, indeed.
Absolutely, but anybody who knows Mohammed Jah, just as you said, they will expect it and say, well, you are QTV, you will say this anyway.
Yeah,
but the very fact that this happened,
quite.
All the other operators, their network had gone down, zero, but not QCell.
Yeah, quite.
You cannot rig that, you cannot invent it. You know what I mean? It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
But that tells you, sometimes I wonder, does the fact that he's an engineer make his thinking different, as it were?
An engineer and entrepreneur.
When you combine the two, the technical aspects, how you think technically. He keeps telling you, I'm an engineer, and engineers, they provide solutions. But this is it. It shows the value of foresight.
Well,
this cannot be anything but
you
foresight.
You took the very word I was going to use, foresight.
Foresight, the right investment, and putting it in strategically.
Sure.
Look at it.
Yeah.
It showed itself. It showed everybody. So this, you don't need to say anything. You don't need PR.
Quite.
The event itself is its own PR.
Well, that's right. Absolutely. And in fact, for those who are watching and like me, if you heard all the engineers who were talking about this, talking about redundancy, redundancy in the engineering term,
absolutely,
it means something completely different. It means planning for and having a backup for a system. You kind of mimic the system in case one goes down. The so-called the redundancy kicks in and make sure that nothing untoward happens.
Intentional duplication of critical components, isn't it? Stuff like that.
That's right.
And that's it. And he mentioned something else, the liberalization.
Well,
I think that's a very important angle.
Yeah.
Something needs to be liberalized.
And
then the private sector sort of having the courage. Going into it, stuff like that. That's one of the benefits, as it were. So, yes, everything just speaks for itself.
And as you said, Nawek, take note. Thank you for that, Mr. Mboj. And we're on to story number 5, which will also take us to the break. And the Gambia has recently signed an offshore oil exploration deal with a company called Eni Gambia, ENI Gambia. What's that about? Have a look, have a listen.
The agreement, signed on June 5th, 2026, grants ENI the right to explore offshore Block A1, a large deep-water area covering about 1,300 square kilometers off the Gambia's Atlantic coast. It lies within the high prospective Mauritania, Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry, MSGBC basin, which has a history of significant hydrocarbon discoveries.
This does not mean that we have discovered oil and gas. It means that we have secured a partner who will, through a science-led, data-backed series of programs of activities, advance our exploration activities towards, hopefully, the discovery of commercial oil and gas.
The block was formerly held by BP, which acquired it in 2019 but relinquished the acreage in 2021 after shifting its corporate strategy towards renewable energy.
And it was significant that I wanted to include that BP thing because people had thought that the reason BP relinquished this was because of the fact that it wasn't viable and it wasn't going to be commercially viable. And before that, before BP had come in, it was owned by, the block had been acquired by African Petroleum. A guy called Frank Timis led African Petroleum. And they're the ones who said, and in fact, they were also involved in Senegal and in fact pulled out eventually. But so, yeah, so it seems as if the potential is there. And wanted to include the bit where they said, don't get too excited. It doesn't mean that we're going to start pumping oil next year. But nonetheless, an encouraging sign that another company has come in and is willing to have a go.
Absolutely. So one goes, another one leaves. It's because of the location, isn't it?
That's
Apparently
right.
it is strategically located along an area where Senegal's got this Sangoma field.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of optimism that something is here. Let's keep on trying. Let's keep on trying. Sooner or later we're going to get we're going to strike oil, that sort of thing.
Well, that's the hope. And of course, the reason you and I mentioned Sangoma and Senegal is we've seen that it's not the silver bullet. Senegal, again, we discussed on the Week in Review, when they launched PASTEF, when they came into power, they launched not just a 5-year plan, but a 25-year plan. And they said clearly that a lot of this is based on the oil revenue we expect to collect over the next 25, 30, 40, 50 years. Nonetheless, we see the difficulties they're now having with the World Bank and the IMF. So it's not the magic bullet, it's not the silver bullet, but in the long term, it could help, certainly.
It's a tool.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. In the end, it's a tool.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on how you use your tool.
That's right.
So the tool in itself cannot do anything for you.
Quite.
But it depends on how you use the tool. So it's just simple as that, really.
Right.
So we'll see whether we'll get our eureka moment.
Indeed.
As it were.
That's
but,
right.
It seems a lot of people are hopeful. That's why this company wants to have a go.
Indeed, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sure they've done their feasibility studies.
Done the feasibility studies and the like, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Mboj. And at this point, we'll go for a commercial break. And after the break, guess what? 5 more stories. Don't go away. Join us after the break. Hello and welcome back after that break. You are watching QTV and you are watching the Week in Review with me, Ade Darami, and friend and colleague Mohamed Mboj. And if you're just joining now, I want to ask what you were doing, but you've missed 5 good stories. But don't worry, rather. We still got 5 stories still to go, okay? And they're equally as good, including the next one. I mentioned at the top of the program that the state had decided to appeal the acquittal of Ousseynou Bojang, the man accused of shooting to death 2 PRU officers and wounding another. Here's some of what we reported on regarding that appeal.
The state has begun its appeal against the High Court judgment that acquitted and discharged Ousseynou Bojang and his sister Ami Bojang. On March 30th, 2026, Justice Ibrahima Jaiteh cleared Ousseynou Bojang of charges including the murder of police constable Sanjay Mendy and Pate Jallow, acts of terrorism, attempted murder, and causing grievous bodily harm to police constable Ansi Jawo. His sister Ami Bojang was also acquitted of a charge of accessory to murder. A day after the acquittal, the state, through the Director of Public Prosecutions A.M. Yusuf, filed a notice of appeal before the Court of Appeal, seeking to overturn the High Court's decision. In its appeal, the prosecution has outlined 17 grounds, arguing that the trial judge made several errors in law and in the assessment of evidence. Among key arguments, the state contends that the trial judge wrongly dismissed alleged extrajudicial statements attributed to Ousseynou Bojang, finding that they lacked independent evidence linking him to the crimes. The appeal further argues that the court placed too much emphasis on visual identification while failing to properly consider circumstantial evidence.
Now, if you have cleaned your ears or not, you did not mishear. When I looked at the 17 grounds that the state has brought, the case is now in open court, so we can discuss it. I was aghast. They were even blaming the judge for not considering circumstantial evidence. I didn't think they'd dare put such a thing, but they did. I'm not a betting man, Mr. Mboch, but I tell you, having read the 17, they don't appear to have much grounds of being successful in this appeal. I'll be as blunt as that. I would be surprised if they won this appeal.
At the court of first instance, the judge was really devastating on the quality, quality of the prosecution, that case.
Sure.
So, yes, they will come and appeal. We'll see where it goes. It is their right to do that. But for me, the question is, if they uphold it, imagine the Court of Appeal upholds the Court of First Instance. Let them even go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, quite.
Who killed Sang Mendi and Pate Jaro?
Yes, sir.
In the meantime, can somebody at least entertain the idea, thought, that possibly Zainu didn't do it?
Indeed.
You see, the court, this judge, he listened to all the evidence.
Yep.
Should we start looking elsewhere? You know what I mean? So one is really getting worried with the quality of public management. You know what I mean? How people who are running the affairs of state, the thinking pattern, how one is doing it.
Indeed.
So, because that is a relevant point. If it is true, then who? They are so hell-bent, it appears. They are so hell-bent on Zainu Bojang. Immediately he was acquitted, then they arrest him, and then have to release him again. But what is going on here? Instead of focusing on who actually killed these two.
Well, this is it. Because when our colleague Nicholas Bass, when he brought the 17 charges, I said, okay, let me go back to Jaite's judgment. And the only words I can use were, he dismantled their case. He dismantled it in several pages of judgment. And so I was aghast when I saw some of what they're trying to rehash, reheat, and bring back. But it does raise the question, if this chap is once again found not guilty, if the original court's decision is upheld, then who did kill these two people and wound the other? That question goes begging.
Absolutely. And when I look at Judge Day's record, how many times have we had his judgments overturned in the Court of Appeal? So I think his competence is established that, because I think that's a good indicator of somebody's competence in many ways. How many? Or at least one of them, you know. That's it. So we'll see how things pan out. But it is important for the Attorney General's office to look at your internal systems. What is it that we need to change, as it were? Maybe perhaps even the police, how do you gather evidence? What can we learn from this case to rectify instead of being defensive and just sticking to what you think, you know what I mean? Just sticking to your position and
quite.
I don't know.
Indeed, and you know, as viewers will know, some cases demand more than others in terms of discussing them. Now, story number 7, Abdoulaye Wade, former president of Senegal, turned 100 on the 29th of May. And there were lots of celebrations, a week of celebrations in honor of the man in Senegal, and lots of African leaders and others sent their congratulations. Here's some of what went down. Senegal has marked a historic milestone with nationwide celebrations honoring former President Abdoulaye Wade as he becomes the country's first former head of state to reach the age of 100. The two-day tribute, held under the patronage of President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, brought together political leaders, religious figures, academics, and ordinary citizens to celebrate a man whose political journey spans much of Senegal's modern history. At the Grand Théâtre National in Dakar, President Faye led the official ceremony, describing Wade as a living monument whose perseverance and commitment helped shape Senegal's democratic story. While his final years in office were marked by political controversies, speakers at the symposium focused on his enduring contribution to democratic governance and national development. As Senegalese celebrate a century of Abdoulaye Wade's life, the events have offered both reflections and recognition of a leader whose influence continues to shape public life in Senegal and resonates across the wider Senegambian region. Mr. Mbodj, across Africa, we always talk about presidents who hang on until they reach a ripe old age. He didn't quite hang on till he reached, I think he was 85 when he tried to go for a third term unsuccessfully. But we heard the word perseverance there. 73 when he finally became president after several attempts. And now the nation, Ousmane Sonko even issued a press release saying, I bow at the feet of Abdoulaye Wade, etc., etc. And quite a grand week of celebration has ensued.
Absolutely. PDS, for us, I mean, I suppose to today's generation, most of them will just think of Lai Wade as president and all of that.
Yeah.
But I remember him as the perpetual opposition against Senghor, because when we were at that age in the 70s or so, he founded PDS in 1974.
That's right.
So this is it. So we saw that swords play between Wade and this one and Senghor, and people don't realize highly educated and academic, a scholar, double PhDs in law and economics. I mean, has done so much.
Right.
So absolutely, endurance is very much the example, the quintessence of endurance, political endurance, as it were, and in the end, he prevailed.
He prevailed. As I said, grand celebrations. The only thing that's slightly sort of tainted, of course, he no longer lives in Senegal. He lives in Versailles, fittingly perhaps. But people turned out in numbers at the various symposiums, and it wasn't just a kind of sing and dance. They also had symposia and seminars looking at his legacy, both his politics and also, what is his legacy in terms of infrastructure, which was a big thing with him. And of course, his successors have also kind of banged on about infrastructure and the importance of infrastructure.
Oh yeah, schools, hospitals, he built them all.
Yeah,
but Senegal also demonstrated something else. This is quite interesting. Never mind the divisions and all the rest of it. Bassirou Diomaye Faye, Ousmane Sonko, Macky Sall. Unbelievable. This is like a masterclass in institutional continuity.
Absolutely.
This is beyond the partisan.
It really is.
You see, the nation, you must have a history. You must respect your history, and that must be, it's not a partisan subject. Sometimes as a nation, never mind that we are political rivals, we are not enemies. We are political rivals. There are certain things we must come together as a nation.
And Diomaye Faye said something. He said, this man, regardless of your political affiliations, he is an indelible part of our history.
Absolutely.
Who can argue with that?
Nobody.
No one. Thank you for that, Mr. Mbodj. Story number 8. I said when I was introducing this, something that Mr. Mbodj and I are quite keen on, which is books and reading. And we know it's almost a losing battle about trying to reintroduce a reading culture, but some of us are not giving up. And amongst those not giving up is Aissatou Dia of Q Group Foundation. And here's some of what I'm talking about. Have a look, have a listen.
We want our children to have interest in reading. Right now, a lot of people don't read. Everybody's into videos, just scrolling. And I'm afraid that one day we might not be able to read anymore, So we want our children to go back to books.
Kids who are going to school at the lower grades. And then if we can train them, there are 3 or more points that we can elaborate on this. One, to furnish the schools with Gambian author books is very important.
That is Albion Methodist Lower Basic School. We don't joke when it comes to reading. From grade 2 to grade 6, every week, children will go with books and they will come. But
These ones, I know, it will be more than a big plus for them.
I met with him and then he gave me a set of the books and I was reading them. I was like, I took them home to my children. And they were so enthralled, not just to have the books, but the stories inside these books, like Mrs. Jha says, to start children young with good ideas.
We heard lastly there from Lassana Tunkara, but Mr. Mboj, the bit that really made me smile when I watched this at first was Aisatu's thing about we lose the ability to read. It reminded me of those animals that had limbs that they no longer used through evolution. Because they no longer used them, they lost that limb, as it were, or that feature of their
human appendix.
Well, quite, exactly.
That sort of thing. Something that was there.
That's right. But, on a more serious note, these books were launched back in January at Q City. You were there, in fact. In fact, you were there. And mischievous mosquitoes. And they are authored by a Gambian, and so they have a context that people can relate to. And so Aissatou Jah and the Q Foundation decided to buy a set of these books initially for 4 lower basic schools in the Greater Banjul area. And as they said, to inculcate once again this habit.
Absolutely. I'm co-authored, as I said, by Mamadou Ndao. And there was somebody else, Sophie Jain.
Right.
Unfortunately, she passed away.
That's right.
before this. And the illustrations.
Yes,
fantastic. Somebody called Mariana Ostanek. So it was very much a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
So it was just so funny. It's just so hilarious. This sort of band of spirited mosquitoes around Banjul.
Bakau.
That's it. They have lively escapades. But something else is happening behind that. So you have the introducing themes of curiosity, problem solving, community, health. So you are laughing, but again, something else is going in you. That osmosis is like an osmosis, as it were, because that's how books work on you.
That's right.
And there's something else. With our mobile phones and all these machines, we are reading stuff.
Yeah, quite.
But the value of books, it teaches you to think sustainably. Sustained thinking. I go from cover to cover.
Yep.
Whereas with these things, they are fragmentary. That's why we have short attention span.
Yes.
I can just deal with ideas for a short time.
Yeah.
Engage any of these kids in a long discussion of politics or anything else, it breaks down.
And
so you're not going to get argument and logic. Oh, that's my feeling. Oh, that's my feeling. There's no proper sustained thinking.
Let me out my team here, the news team. I went to Bakote, Amsterdam, and I saw a range of classic books, English literature books, books that I'd read and so on, everything from Graham Greene to others. I bought 12 of them, and I gave them I said, I want all of you to read and then report back to me about what you gained from it. And that was 9 months ago, Mr. Mboj. Not one person has come back to me to say they read the books.
It's the way our lives are organized.
Yeah.
Reading is not part of our culture, absolutely. Unless perhaps the, westernized middle class people, yes. With them, you go to their homes, they read. In fact, some of them read to their children.
Yeah.
People don't have time. We're not really like that. Often they'll tell you, go and study, but there's nobody there to help you. You're your own wits. Maybe now things are changing, but that's what we know. So people don't read.
People don't
read. It's an educated class thing.
Yeah, quite. Let's hope that can change. Thank you for that. We're running out of time, but we still have 2 more stories to go. Next story, very, very different. We go to France, and next to the River Seine, a monument has been unveiled in memory and in honor of the people who were killed during the Rwandan genocide. I watched all 3 hours of it. Very somber, very serious. Here's some of what went down.
The memorial before us is powerful because it sets the truth in stone and protects it from the heartlessness of time by instructing the living. It's not a validation because none is needed. But it will stand as a mark of respect for the dignity of Rwandans and our history.
This inauguration comes as France and Rwanda continue efforts to strengthen ties after decades of difficult relations linked to the genocide.
I therefore would like to close by reiterating our appreciation and respect for President Macron's clarity and resolve. The work we are doing together will give future generations the tools to build and sustain the peace and understanding which we seek.
And there we heard Kagame. He was saying that this was in the city of Paris. Mr. Mboj, Kagame being Kagame, it was quite significant. He didn't hold back. Yes, it was commemorative and so on. Everybody thought it would be diplomatic. But he said no. He said France has finally owned up to its complicity in the genocide. And that's what this is. And that's what this represents. And so, as I said, he didn't hold back. Macron came and made sort of conciliatory comments as well. But it's quite significant that this, not in Belgium, which is a former colonizer, but in Paris, because there's been, if anybody in aware, quite a backlash against the French, because it is said that they were in a position to have stopped this. They didn't do it. And so even 10 years ago, they went from having French as their only European official language. Now it's English. and the speech he gave in Paris was not in French, which he speaks fluently, but in English. And that was quite significant as well.
Absolutely. I think, for 2 decades, isn't it? Relations between Kigali and Paris were essentially frozen.
Oh, indeed.
Because of the accusations and stuff like that, that the French were complicit in that. This was essentially mea culpa. Yes, guilty as charged.
Yeah, quite.
That's really what we had there. It's just as simple as that. Everybody knows it's been documented what they did. You know, even a commission, the French Commission 2021 said that what France was blinded by its colonial history, something like that.
That's right.
Its colonial attitude.
Yeah, quite.
It was a colonial attitude. So everybody knows this. So this is like the rapprochement, the beginning of sort of mending fences.
Indeed, very much so. Thank you for that, Mr. Mboj. Story number 10 could not be more different. On the 11th of June, the World Cup kicks off. And this time there are 10 African teams taking part. And some of them have been playing friendlies in preparation. Have a look, have a listen.
Many football lovers will be anticipating the France versus Senegal fixture, a repeat of the 2002 World Cup match between the two sides, which Senegal, on their World Cup debut, won 1-0. Iraq and Norway will be the Teranga Lions' other group opponents. The Black Stars will face Panama, Croatia, and England in Group L. The Atlas Lions, who got to the semi-finals at the last World Cup, will face 5-time winners Brazil, Haiti, and Scotland in Group C. And finally, African minnows Cape Verde defeated Serbia, who are 30 places higher than them on the FIFA rankings, 3-0, in front of a delighted crowd of almost 8,000 Cape Verdeans in Lisbon, Portugal. They have been said to have one of the toughest World Cup groupings, being drawn against one of the favorites, Spain, plus Saudi Arabia and Uruguay.
What I said to Gajaga, in fact, when we were both working on that report, I said it's almost as if they want to punish Cape Verde for having the temerity to qualify ahead of the likes of Cameroon. Throw them in with Spain, one of the favorites. Uruguay, former twice winner of the World Cup back in the 30s. And Saudi Arabia, a really, really tough group for them. But nonetheless, you know, I've been watching all their daily, and in fact they post daily, and all the other teams. They've got very, very active Facebook pages and social media pages about their progress. And they've all done, you know, not bad in the friendlies, but of course the real action, Mr. Mboj, June 11th, that's when all the phony wars start and the real war starts.
Absolutely, and sort of in the lead up, as it were, to it, part of it, because the hosts would be Canada, Mexico, and US. and the US, all the conditionalities they were attaching to funds going.
Yeah.
So this sort of anxiety.
DR Congo, they told DR Congo to
yes.
isolate for 21 days, even though none of the players play in Congo and weren't had been in touch with anybody with Ebola. And so it's been one of the more difficult World Cups. Yes, we looked forward to the football fiesta, as we always describe it, but this one has been even more contentious than the last one,
yes.
which everybody thought was contentious enough in Qatar.
That uncertainty. But just as, was it in Qatar that Messi got the cup finally?
Well, indeed, yeah.
We want a surprise.
Well, this is
Perhaps it will turn out to be the most sensational World Cup ever.
That's what I'm hoping for.
And there'll be a surprise.
We hope so. And let's hope it's an African surprise.
A team that's never won it before.
Yeah, quite.
That's it.
That
I
would
keep
be wonderful.
wondering, I don't think it's going to be in my lifetime. Would I ever see an African team, African country winning the World Cup?
Well, this is it. And you know, we go back to the former coach Eberhard, who said that the reason people watch football is because you never know what's going to happen.
You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, quite.
Could it be a surprise?
Let's hope so. Thank you for that, Mr. Mbosh. Let's hope it's a delightful surprise. And viewers, this is where we end. And just to say, to use the words of our colleague who is, been in hospital and then released, Esonyasis, this is where we draw the curtain until we come your way again next week. Goodbye.